the presentation on executive protection. Hey, if you just watched our video, this is the kind of extended explanation for executive protection and what that means as a security professional. Okay, if you want to get a hold of us, you can get us at contact@michaelmannsecurityservices.com, or you can call me directly at 615-956-3912. So let's get into it. Again, as you heard on our Security Management Minute video, executive protection really just basically is safeguarding an at-risk person. So that at-risk person, normally we call a principal, and the principal can be a political figure, it can be a faith-based leader, it can be somebody in the entertainment industry, it can be a professional athlete, it can be a corporate executive, or any kind of high net worth individual that is at risk for some sort of compromise, and they actually need personal protection. Okay, so let's go through the steps of developing executive protection, a program, or the process if, as a professional, you have been asked to do this or directed to do this. So one, the very first step is conduct that threat assessment. So that threat assessment, number one, is going to tell us who the adversaries are going to be. So who wants to harm that principal, what their intent, what their capability, and the frequency of those potential attacks will be. And just like we've talked about with some other things, this threat assessment is also going to help you develop that design basis threat, or what you're trying to protect that principal against. So the first step in this is let's conduct a threat assessment, because everything that we do moving forward is going to be based off the threat assessment. Okay. The next step in this is to develop countermeasures. So what are the security requirements? So now that we know what the threats are, what are the security requirements going to be to protect our principal? Is it going to be low profile versus like high threat or high profile? What does it mean? Most of the time in our environments, corporate, church security world, etc., a lot of this stuff's going to be low profile. So it's not going to be something that's very overt. So most of the time, there may be some exceptions, but for the most part, this is going to be low profile in our environments, and the folks that pay attention here. Now, the countermeasures also could be immediate, so something I need to do right away because there's some sort of a threat that needs to be dealt with now, or it could be long-term. So the countermeasures could be something we got to do right away, and then we can have we could have these long-term countermeasures. Some of them can be permanent, like especially obviously the long-term, and then there are temporary measures also, which kind of go into the immediate piece. So these are some of the classifications or categories of countermeasures and what those countermeasures are for. Okay. Now you want to acquire qualified personnel. So once we know the threat and we know what it is that we need to do, we need to go hire those qualified personnel. And so let's get some internal standards. We want to develop standards for those folks based on the threat, based on the need. We want to make sure that those folks have been trained and certified in executive protection. I will tell you, this is a very specialized skill within physical security. It's like conducting a risk assessment. A lot of folks don't get training on this. There's an expectation that because they were in the military or law enforcement before, that they're going to be good close protection agents. And I will tell you from experience, that is not true. Okay. Hard skills and soft skills. I want both. The hard skills are the medical stuff, the gun stuff, the CRAV, the hand-to-hand, all that stuff. That's necessary, but you're probably, especially if you're doing your job, probably never going to have to use those. The soft skills are going to be those things like your security assessments, your advances, your ability to get along with the principal, your ability to fit into the environment. And that gets into like your personality or the agent's personality, protective agent's personality, and that these folks can be both present while not being overbearing, especially in these low profile environments or atmospheres that are required most of the time when we're talking about the principles that most of you guys are going to be dealing with. So we want to get those qualified personnel. The next step in this is, all right, once we've got the personnel, let's get this layered approach in. So this layered approach is designed to mitigate the impact of any attack, okay? So we talk about concentric rings, and how are we going to do that? So what are the security requirements to provide this layered approach? Are we going to do this when the principal is just at work? Do we have to do this while he or she or he and the family or she and the family is at home? Do we need to do this when there's travel? So there's a lot wrapped around the layered approach. So not just having the approach to mitigate the impact, but like, when do we have to have this approach and what does that look like? Are you going to use physical measures? Are we going to use electronic measures also to help us with this? And this also gets into the procedures we're going to develop to make sure that that layered approach is in place and that it stays in place to ensure that we are safeguarding that principle at all times. Okay. And then, of course, we've got this process of continuous improvement, folks. Continuous improvement for our program means there's a constant reevaluation of the threats that our principals face, the countermeasures that we have implemented to make sure that they're still effective, the training required to upkeep training and certification, and to make sure again that this is an effective program. And we also want to reevaluate those procedures at least quarterly to make sure that we don't need to make changes. Now, you'll see on the right here this Plan, Do, Check, Act. This is the 4 stages of continuous improvement, and we call that PDCA. I address this very specifically in a lot of our CPP and PSP certification training in security management, physical security, and we'll talk about that here in just a minute if you want to be a part of that. So the last part of this is, of course, the continuous improvement with the program. Okay, if you're interested in this CPP, PSP, or APP certification, hey, click on the link below and just get added to our mailing list, and you will get information about that throughout the year. These certification study groups are absolutely free. We provide all the material. You just have to pay to take the exam and get that certification. Okay, folks, again, if you want to get a hold of us, you can get me at contact@michaelmannsecurityservices.com, or you can call me at 615-956-3912. And remember, folks, it's about prevention, not response.